Hello, and welcome to this Thank God It's Almost Time edition of the Purple Journal podcast. I'm your host, Joe Johnson, owner of Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory, here with, as always, Mr. Joe Oberly, senior writer for Purple PTSD and the Sports Post.
The OG is in the house.
The OG.
I like that. That should stick.
It's sticking. Joe's making it stick.
Because I need something to call one of you guys so I can say Joe.
Yeah. The OG. He's got T-shirts printed. It's his whole new brand.
Nice. I just can't get past the fact that it stands for old guy, but what the hell.
Well,
I do like original gangster. That's fine.
Speaking of, that would make Luke the original baby gangster, as the rappers say. Mr. Luke
I
Brown.
don't think rappers have ever said a word about me.
They will.
And I don't think they ever will.
Give it time, man.
Aren't you straight out of Compton, Luke?
He's close.
I've been to Compton.
Well, that's good enough.
I guess technically I've also gone out of Compton.
Yeah.
Because I had to leave at some point.
There you go.
Straight out of it, right up the main thoroughfare.
If you're driving straight at the time, then there you are.
True North.
Hard to know. True.
How you doing, Luke?
Doing good.
He's a senior writer for Purple PTSD also.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm going to go to the game on Monday, so flying into Minnesota to see family and spend the weekend, and I'm going to be at the stadium.
Nice. That's major news, man. That's awesome.
Look up in the press box and wave.
Where is the press box? I was trying to figure that out when I was there. I saw some stuff way at the top of the stadium, but that can't be it.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, above home plate used to be that area. It's where the dragging comes out, right above there. And I'm on the third row. So.
Well, that's exciting. We have our party on Monday, sort of. Well, we still have it. It's just it's been quite the process, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But are you guys psyched about the opener, or are you relieved that the off season's over?
I'm ready for some football, as they say. It's been kind of a long and interesting route to this game. Finally, it seems like a long time. I mean, you had all the Mankato drama, and you had there's always drama associated with the Vikings, and the most recent drama that we'll get to in a bit. But it's good to finally see. I just really am looking forward to seeing what the Vikings are going to look like, since the offense looked terrible for most of the preseason, and it'd be nice to see. I'd like to see the defense come and really play, wanting to play, and stick it to somebody. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they got.
Do you think that the team needs to come out and play really well to kind of quiet any of the doubters? I mean, I know it's a long season and everything, and then any team can turn it around, but how important do you guys think that's going to be, that they come out crisp and like Joe?
I don't think they should care about the doubters. The doubters shouldn't be on their radar.
I just think they have to come out and play well to win.
Win games.
Just got to win this game. It's against a very good team. New Orleans has got an improved defense after being a terrible defense the last too many years, and they still got the same great offense. So, like Zimmer said the other day, it's going to be a test, a real test. It's a Monday night, it's opening night, and it's the Vikings have not put their best foot forward offensively, so it will be a huge test for them. So they really, they'll put some doubters aside, with a win, in my estimation.
I would love for them to put some doubters aside, because there's some people that think this team will be like 5-11 and they need to shut up.
Yeah.
For like our sanity.
Yes.
But if you walk into that locker room after losing, those are the last things you're thinking about. You're thinking about what the coach is going to think. You're thinking about if you're going to get benched for someone. Like, let's not let some of these stupid off-season storylines that have kind of been fabricated out of nowhere Like, let's not pretend that the team is, like, trolling Twitter all the time.
Outside Rodney Adams.
Hey, Rodney Adams, he actually doesn't tweet as much as he should if he wants to have successful vlogs. But his vlogs are still very fun.
Yeah, it's so different than it was. What was it, 2015? When we started the season with a national game, and everyone was hyping up the Vikings as this young team that was going to be unstoppable, and then they came out and just laid a huge egg. And I think we've talked about this before, but Zimmer's good at using any bulletin board material to hype up this team, and I think they know. Obviously, they're professionals. They know they haven't played well, or maybe that they haven't had the opportunity to play well because they've been thinking more about scheme stuff or practicing scheme stuff in the preseason, especially on defense. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the defense come out firing on all cylinders and going up against AP. That's obviously the big storyline. What do you guys think about? The big question, I guess, is how the Saints are going to use him. You'd think that he'd want to get the ball as much as possible Monday night, but I mean,
I don't see them. I guess I put at the end of something I wrote the other day, a little prediction on what he was going to do, and I thought maybe 10 carries tops, and Ingram's the starter, and better pass catcher obviously than Peterson is. Say much, but they'll get Peterson in there. They'll get him in there, and they'll try to see that, try to get the Vikings to draw 8 men into the box and then have Drew Brees eat him up, who has had some success against his team. So it's I don't think they're going to see him feeding Peterson. He's going to try and get his whenever he gets an opportunity, but they'll split carries.
Yeah, this isn't going to be the Adrian Peterson show because it is not 2012. He is not the best running back on that roster, and they would be unwise to rely on him to get their offense going. You'll see a lot of Mark Ingram. You'll probably see a solid dose of Alvin Kamara, and you'll see, I would imagine, a little bit more Adrian Peterson in short yardage situations or in like jumbo packages and stuff where you just need a guy to be physical. But he's not going to be, you're not going to be giving him 35 carries hoping that he breaks one, because even if he does get to the second level, he doesn't have that burst anymore.
Definitely, and with AP and his reputation of needing the ball all the time and taking over offenses and everything, you think the Saints kind of want to set a precedent too, that they signed him to a pretty low deal because he's not the AP of old. So I think people, mainly Vikings fans that I talk to, their big concern seems to be that AP is going to put up like 300 yards, which is impossible.
He'll get one touchdown that is on a first and goal from the one that was set up by a Trey Waynes PI. And he's going to over-celebrate it, and we're all going to be mad, and that's how this is going to happen.
I know the answer to this, but do you think he'll get booed?
Yes.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. I don't think it will be overwhelming, but
it'll be like a half and half kind of deal, and it'll be bad. Don't boo if you're going to the game.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't like the guy either, but come on, we're better than that.
And that reminds me of something I was seeing online. Was it yesterday? About the team. I don't know if I always forget to put things on the list, but about the team retiring Moss's number. Is that actually happening?
No, they're putting him on the Ring of Honor, or is he already up there?
No, they're putting him on the Ring of Honor, but they're not retiring 84.
Okay. They will eventually, I'm sure.
I hope so.
If he doesn't deserve it, who does?
Going to have to give it up then.
Bucky, yeah. Well, that's a hard one to Moss versus.
Yeah, well, he's on IR, so he doesn't have much to say about it right now.
Yeah, but before we get to the opener and all the fun stuff, even though we kind of talked about it a little bit, obviously there was last weekend was cut weekend, and there were some big surprises there, namely on the offensive line. One of which I think almost gave my dad a heart attack, which was the Alex Boone one. There's a lot of offensive line stuff, so I guess we could start with Boone because Luke wrote an amazing piece that discussed kind of that. Yay! Someone said this is better than Star Tribune. There's stuff in here that wasn't in the paper, which is
Did someone say that?
My dad said it. I didn't want to name drop my dad twice
thanks,
in 30
Joe's dad.
seconds. Yeah, and he still gets the paper every morning, like the physical paper. So that means like a Catholic saying this is better than the Bible. So you wrote about how Easton sort of necessitated the Boone thing and made him kind of the odd man out.
Easton won a position battle that wasn't even supposed to be a position battle. Like going into the season, it would be like if Case Keenum won the start over Bradford, we'd all be floored. And it was just, I just watched all of their preseason snaps at left guard. And when you focus on left guard and not center, because Easton was very up and down in center and the 49ers game was a disaster, you kind of see like what he did. And I think the most interesting thing about it was the timing. And that, Easton kind of had his best snaps and his best games at the most opportune times. His best game was against Seattle, which I don't know if Alex Boone plays in that game and then, Easton comes in and does that same thing against the twos, I don't think he wins the job. But because Easton can come in against the ones, against very good ones, because it's Seattle, and, that was his best preseason game, I think that's when they start thinking about it. And then, Boone has a couple decent series against the 49ers. He made a couple mistakes, but it was nothing that was like really drastic. I know people like to laugh at that Reuben Foster clip, but Reuben Foster made a phenomenal play, and he still got in his position. He just got blown back a bit. Boone's mistakes were not detrimental. He made a few, but he had overall, a fine preseason. And then immediately after, Nick Easton would put out his best snaps. And, when they're just right next to each other and the easiest to compare, that's when Nick Easton looked his best. And when Easton was making his mistakes, they were more detrimental than Boone's, but I think they were timed in such a way that it really makes Easton look better. And I do think, the body of work that Easton put out was a better thing. So then you get to, okay, Alex Boone, we have to, bench you and we have to have you take a pay cut, and he's not going to be interested in any of that. So lest you have an angry, noisy backup offensive lineman in your locker room, you got to cut ties.
And how much do you think it was about his personality and in his inability to maybe reduce his role a little bit? Like he was talked about as like a leader in the locker room last year by some people. But he's not
things though. I say those are two different things in my opinion. That I think that the part about his personality is a little bit overblown. That he's a vocal guy. He's always great to when the cameras are on him to turn on the charm, and then with the good quotes, and then as soon as the cameras go off, he's a little bit testier, certainly to the media. I don't know how much if there's some snowflakes in the rest of the offensive line that he was a little abrasive to. I still don't think it was outlandish. Like you said in your piece, or maybe not you, I don't know if it was you or Hassan's piece about comparing him to Incognito. It wasn't like that, but
that was Reef.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with him. They're saying, okay, you're not going to start. We need to cut your salary a little. Can you cut some slack here? And he says no. And he probably disliked both of those things, not only not starting, but getting a pay cut. And he says, heck with it. And they just looked at it and said, well, they probably looked at his body of work over the past 2 years. He wasn't great last year. He was good, but I
think he was pretty good.
He was good. I wouldn't say he was great. He came in here. You were hoping him to save the offensive line, and I know everything that happened to it, but there are certainly adjustments to be made there. So you're looking for him to step up here, and if they're not seeing a decided step further, I mean, the guy's 30. He came in here with. They talked about when he left San Francisco that he was on the downside of his career. That's the kind of stuff I would read and then try to put out of my head because I was hopeful that he was going to be this offensive line savior. So I don't think he was that. And look, okay, we got a guy who's just about as good, makes a lot less. He's younger. We can have this line play together for a number of years. If you don't want to take a pay cut or swallow your pride, I guess we got to say goodbye. So that's my 2 cents anyway.
I just don't think you can look at his on-field performance and justify an outright cut just based on that in the contract. I think you have to have some degree of they asked him to be a backup, and he said, "I'd rather you release me." And I think that's that's all business, and that the Vikings obliging him on that is pretty wise, because if you say, "Hey, I'd rather be released than be a backup," probably don't want that guy on your team, whether or not he's been a jerk to the rest of the players or whatever, which I don't think should matter much. But I think if you look at his body of work in 2016 and his preseason, that is a starting quality offensive lineman.
Certainly,
definitely not.
Yes, but this allows them to let him go. I mean, that his body of work isn't so great that they have to have it. And if he says he doesn't want, if he's going to be a malcontent and not going to be happy with his role, or take a pay cut that helps out the team, then and he wants to go, then you say, yeah, well, we'll see you.
I think if he takes it in stride and he says, oh yeah, sure, okay, I'll be a backup, thanks, coach. And if he were the kind of guy that would take that in stride, I don't think you cut him because, we're going to save $3 million or whatever.
Correct.
I think there has to be some level of contention with him taking a pay cut and him being asked to be a backup. You cannot justify the move on its merits alone.
Yeah, it's not like this is, a Vikings team that's super deep on the offensive line all of a sudden just because we made some moves, and it's like, we can get rid of Boone now because we drafted a bunch of young guys. It's just because
we have Danny Isidora, who's never played left guard before.
Yeah, it's just
yes, we're not a lot. It's not a line that especially after last year, you don't just cut outright, guys with his
That would be so cavalier. It wouldn't even make sense if for bad GMs. Who is the Colts guy? Les Snead wouldn't do that,
Yeah, and that was my initial reaction. Is like, what are they? Are they that confident in these guys? Like, we just had a season where we didn't have any depth, and that hurt us. And now we're getting rid of depth. But if he didn't want to stay, there's really not a whole lot you can do. But at the end of the day, I guess regardless of the who's and the whys, it ends up being kind of a bad move for the team overall.
Peterson didn't want to stay, and they kept him around a couple more years. So, it's not like it's unprecedented for these guys to do something like that. But, I think that you look at the entire equation, with the money, with his reaction, with his role, with his, whatever, and what your future plans are, and you say, okay, this is probably the best way to go, So.
But it's the point I was getting to is it's got to be a net negative for the team. I guess,
I think it sucks.
Yeah. We didn't talk him up a lot last week, but we thought the idea that some people were putting out there that Boone was expendable was kind of laughable. That's why it was weird timing, because I think it came out that day or the day after, and it was like, well, we just talked about this. So I guess my question is, or my fear is if, let's say, Easton gets hurt or Elflein struggles at center and they have to move Easton back to center, or Elflein gets injured, which is, there's two possibilities of injuries or whatever. They're creating a problem. What happens then? Are we not completely screwed? But that's
you got to do something with if Easton or Elflein goes down, I think Berger takes that spot. Or if Easton goes down, you move Elflein to guard and Berger to center or whatever. There's a few options there, and I don't know which one they like the most. And then Danny Isidora comes in and plays right guard. And I think that they're going to be the most confident in him, because who else is even? I guess Searles is there as an interior lineman, but you've got Searles, Hill, and Aviante Collins, and those are kind of your backup tackles. And Searles can, I guess, be an interior guy too. But I think Danny Isidora at right guard, you can't move him. He's never even touched another position in his whole career. So you got to do something with Berger and whoever the other healthy guy is over at left guard and center.
And those three guys that are starting all have position flexibility in the middle, in the interior. So
which has to factor in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving Isidora worked. Moving a guy around worked for Clemmings, and he turned out fine.
I'll agree with you guys. It's probably not great, just because it seems like it's a money thing that it doesn't look good for the Vikings. What is it, 3.5 the dead cap money or something like that?
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah, you save like $3 million. It's fine.
Yeah, which is nice. So it's you can say it's bad for the team, but I was not that. I was surprised, but I was not that worried about it. I thought, well, okay, get the youth movement going, get that interior, get Isadora in there next year, and you'll have those three guys growing together as, with some tackles that have some life on them yet. Draft a couple, start drafting the younger tackles, and this is what you're moving forward with for the future. So, what's his face also got hurt too, Alex Boone, and he was hurt last year, and so who knows how long he'd last anyway. But you can't predict that. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't talk about that because they're not thinking, okay, what are we going to do if so-and-so gets hurt? You just have depth and you go with it and you see what it is. But I don't know.
So
I'm all right with it.
The other guys on the offensive line that are gone are Clemmings, which isn't a huge surprise.
But very interesting in the context of his whole career. Kind of an interesting new chapter to it.
And it just
he did end up on an active roster.
I was going to say,
he's
he
on
got
Washington.
picked up. Yeah, so, you got to root for him just because it feels like that guy kind of went through the ringer when he was here. And it's not the team's fault either, and there was just so much need, and they didn't really have anyone else to do it. But
went through the ringer on this podcast.
Well, he was bad. Also, it goes all the way back to his time at Pitt. He only played tackle for 2 years in college. He was not ready to play, and he then was forced to be ready to play, and we know what that does to players.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can sit on the bench in Washington and develop. I think somewhere in there there's still, he still has the perfect athletic profile for an offensive tackle, and he just needs a little bit of time to get some habits and a fresh start, and I hope it goes well for him.
Yeah, now Willie Beavers can do the same in New England. Oh, goody.
Hey.
Man, I really did think he had a shot.
So
but alas.
They were talking him up.
Yeah, he had a reasonable preseason. Had a few kind of, low light plays, the kind of thing that really pops off the tape in the way you don't want to pop off the tape. And I guess he just had one too many of those, but he was definitely not the hilarious disaster that he was in his rookie year and outperformed what I think everybody's expectations were. So, and he's always, he's on New England's practice squad. So if you do see something like if you have an ACL tear somewhere on the interior line, and you need to pick up another depth interior lineman, you can always poach him. He's still technically available, and you can, re-sign him to an active roster and take him back.
Because that's been the thing for the Vikings forever now. Always have offensive linemen hurt because it's happened last year. It's now become part of our thing.
We're not gonna not have offensive linemen on IR. That would be naive.
No, I know that. I'm not saying you, Luke. I'm just saying it's now we as Vikings observers have to have that as part of the, because Vikings,
It's going to be a while before any of us are confident in the offensive line not imploding at some point. Even if it's this year, the next few seasons, that was just such a record-breaking sort of deal. It got laughable, even as much as it sucked. It was just like, I totally can see why Jake Long's whole career would end in the last 10 seconds of a game.
God, I forgot entirely about that. And he was playing well.
Yeah, he was getting the rust off. He was the quickest guy off the ball, and then there's 15 seconds left, and it was like, he just fell over for no reason. That's probably not good.
Tore a ligament he'd never torn before.
Yeah, man.
Had absolutely nothing to do with his previous ACL injuries. It was pure luck.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway,
Father Time, undefeated.
There were some other cuts that you guys, I think, Luke, you wanted to touch on Robinson.
Ed Robinson, yeah. That one is one that I got wrong in my roster prediction at the beginning of camp, which...
Idiot.
Hey, I think I only got 9 wrong, which is not bad for me. But yeah, Ed Robinson was one that I didn't really think was going to happen because I didn't think he had that bad of a preseason. He definitely was outplayed by Gideon, and I didn't really pay attention much to, once Gideon had kind of emerged as the front runner there, I'd stopped paying attention to Lamore versus Robinson, not realizing that they really were fighting each other for a roster spot. And he got immediately picked up by someone else. I don't remember who. Jets, maybe? Yeah, I think he's a Jet now. But that really sucks because he was, I remember when we drafted him, I was excited about, this kind of small school hyper athlete kind of guy that was, good enough that if he went to a big school and got the attention, he probably would have been drafted higher. And felt very diamond in the rough, and I was always really excited for him. So I'm sad to see him go.
Jet, Jets. Yeah, he's a Jet. Good for him. Worst team in the league, probably. Yikes.
Probably start for them.
Yeah. MVP.
Actually, I have no idea what their linebackers look like, but he's definitely a guy who could be on the field for a bad team.
And the fact that the team ended up keeping a lot of DBs, too.
Yeah, we have 11 defensive backs. Part of that is Tremaine Brock, but he didn't take a spot that was, he didn't take a spot from another position. Tremaine Brock took really the cornerback spot that was supposed to be a fight between Jabari Price and Trey Roberson, and both of them were terrible, so they cut them both and then traded for Tremaine Brock. Where the inflation is they kept one. I think they have 5 safeties on the roster right now, where they've usually had 4. So I would imagine over the course of the season, one of Exum or Curse or Harris will get cut. Probably Harris, because Exum and Curse both had decent preseasons, and Exum showed position flexibility in camp.
Special teams, though.
Was he good on special teams?
Well, that's what they say. He's kind of a beast on special teams. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Well, maybe that's different.
But that could be. They got right now they have Brock listed as a DB. Does that mean he can play safety as well? Am I reading that correctly or no?
He is. Can we talk about Tremaine Brock real fast, because he is short, and that does not mean he is a slot corner. He has not played in the slot really at all, and people just say he's a slot corner because he is small.
He's the Jarius Wright of the defense.
No, think more Antoine Winfield, who could be an outside, who was an outside corner.
Yeah.
His play style isn't anything like Winfield or like quality or anything like that, but he's an outside corner who's very aggressive and makes plays. And he's physical. Sometimes, he got some penalties for being physical, but nothing too bad. And he's an outside physical corner with that you just maybe don't want to get matched up on 6'4", red zone guys.
Okay.
Well, if he works out, what a deal for a 7th rounder, huh?
Right.
Because we know that Rick Spielman will compile at least 4 other 7th rounders for next year, so we don't have to.
Yeah, he'll trade down once, and he'll trade down 8 spots, still get his guy, and get a 7th. He's been able to do that consistently. That was Jaleel Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Traded down 16 spots or something, and you could have taken him at 86 where you started, and it would have been a good pick, and you traded down and still got him, and then got a bunch of random late rounders.
God, the draft was nuts.
Yeah. Stacey Coley.
Yeah. I did want to talk about that's the receivers too that ended up making the team, because I know that we've talked about that the last few weeks, and what the chances of basically Coley, Adams, and even Jarius Wright making the final roster. I wanted to talk about that, and then the follow-up question was going to be, do you think that what happens when Floyd comes back, I guess?
Can I throw out a hot take on this one?
Do it.
I don't think Floyd is better than Coley or Adams. I think both of them showed more in the preseason than Michael. Michael Floyd didn't do anything. He couldn't get separation, he couldn't win contested catches, and he couldn't generate after the catch. He did get it on a crosser or something. He was bad.
I wrote something about Floyd this week about what it means for the offense, and a lot of it was based on team reports from practice and how high they were on he's like a man amongst children, and he's super physical and fast. And he's amazing. But he didn't do anything in the games, and I was just going to say I didn't know if that had something to do with, still learning the offense or playing with a backup quarterback or not having timing with that quarterback. But rookies
I think
have
that's
the same
part
problem.
of it. I remember one play where he was in with I don't know which quarterback. It might have been Heineke, but Heineke made the wrong read because he was looking for the pass long, and he threw it to the back shoulder, and he kind of gestured to him that it was supposed to be thrown long. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I didn't hyper focus on him. I don't think he had a lot of opportunities either. But I think when the lights are on and he's playing with the first team, I think he'll show off better, and they'll probably keep a number of those receivers on the roster and see if somebody expend somebody else that they can figure won't get picked up. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting decision now that they've kept both Coley and Adams. So,
don't you think it's a contingent a lot on like what happens in the first 4 weeks? Like whether, let's say the offense is humming along, the pass game looks great, maybe they don't need Floyd as that wild card, or Wright, Jarius Wright's a healthy scratch for the first quarter of the season, and Coley and Adams are making plays in other ways. There's still a lot that's obviously going to change before Week 5 against the Bears, which is a Monday night game.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But I think that, to me, it just seems like Wright's always the odd man out. I mean, you got two young guys that showed a lot of potential in Adams and Coley, and Wright's kind of on his way out anyway.
I think the only way you can really look at it, though, is no matter what they do, however they configure the roster, the game day roster, and what have you, there's just no room for mobile.
Oh, man. I left that off the list.
Yeah, I think he had
purpose.
his fun time.
Yeah.
He had his couple years, took a shot on it. Next chapter. He'll go back to the Unicorns and wreck a bunch of face.
He's going to actually, I think, kill somebody over there with all he's learned. And he'll be a hero over in Germany forever. What I'm worried about is the third biggest country besides the United States and Canada has been Germany for our traffic. And now we're going to lose that 10 people a month. Can't eat that.
Stay around, Germans.
Yeah, we got other
things. Twins still have Kepler.
And then we have Gastoffs. We should get them as a sponsor to make up for it in Northeast Minneapolis.
With Floyd potentially coming back, one last thing. Odds that all six are healthy by Week 5? You might have somebody tweak a something or other, and then you do the thing where, Jarius Wright has an ankle, guess you're on IR now, which is something they did. They did it with Dayton Jones. They did it with Heineke. They did it with Bucky Hodges. I bet if you needed any of them, they could play through those injuries. They didn't seem like they were particularly big deals, but you're on IR now.
Yeah.
That might be a way to kind of reconcile it, and then you have everybody coming into the next camp, and you can give them all another shot.
It'll be cool to see what Treadwell can do if he can build off of some of the catches he made, and the fact that he wanted to be on IR last year and they wouldn't let him. Maybe they kind of hope they could do that this year, but he needs to come through big time.
Yeah. He looked solid. He didn't get a lot of reps because he was hurt, but he looked in the 49ers game. He looked solid, and I don't think he played in Miami, right?
No, he did. He did.
He did?
Yeah,
I didn't actually get to watch much of that game.
I didn't watch any of it.
He wasn't out there long, Luke. He came out in the first couple series, and I think he had 3 targets, and he looked good, and then they got him out of there. Because I think they wanted to get him some run just because he had missed so much time.
So the season starts Monday. I should probably before, since people drop off during the show, we are doing a viewing party at the Parkway Theater. Monday night, doors open around 5. It's sponsored by McDonald's Liquor and Anderson Windows. Anderson Windows is actually sending 2 recruiters there, and they're going to set up like a bunch of games and stuff that people can play to win free stuff.
Are they recruiters?
Oh yeah, well, close. Making Windows Recruiter. They're looking to hire a bunch of people. That's what they use our website for, and they just want to talk to people.
Gotcha.
Just out in public and then not at career fair type stuff, and just get the word out there for currently employed people that maybe there's some better paying opportunities out there now that the economy's not complete garbage. But it's free. Stop by. There'll be a ton of food, pop. There is a bar next door. We can't have liquor in the theater, but there's a full bar next door. So if you want to get Vikings drunk before the game, which I highly recommend, that's always an option. But I know we touched on this already, and we kind of talked about like the concerns on how the preseason went, and really that not being that huge of a factor. But what are your guys' thoughts on the opener, and then as it ties to the season as a whole? We're kind of getting into the prediction season before the season and record predictions and stuff like that. You don't need a record prediction, but I mean, where are you guys at in regards to this team and their chances and everything? It's a multifaceted question.
Me?
Yeah.
Do it, OG.
I'm cautiously optimistic. In fact, with my annual bet with my cousin Pete over on the Vikings record, who we get the over/under for a little side wager that I used to solicit the advice of Chad Greenway on what he thought the Vikings were going to do in a season, and ended up having to pay beer to him when I won. And he nailed it one year. He said, I said 9-7, and he kind of laughed at me. He says, I said 9-7. He goes, oh, you don't? He said 11-5, and he goes, you don't think so? And I said, well, I don't know. Well, that's exactly what they were. But anyway, exactly. So he's gone, so I don't have that crutch to fall back on. But I did say that I went with 10-6, and I'm a little concerned after what I saw of the offense in the preseason. Not overly concerned because it is the preseason, and they didn't have ups and downs on the offensive line. And there's always a lot of different factors that mitigate something there, but I'm cautiously optimistic and still feel like that's an attainable thing. But it's going to be a battle with the Packers the entire season. If you wanted me to put my biggest worry, I would say is how the offensive line gels. It should have been solidified a little bit earlier so that they got some time to play together. They have not played a game together yet, and part of one. And I guess my biggest thing I'm confident in, of course, is the other side of the ball, is the defensive line. The defense in general, but the defensive line excites me. That could really see some stout play from them and some disruption in the backfield, and that I like Gideon. He seemed to grab that position, and so linebacker, the front seven, I think are going to be pretty decent. A little concerned about the nickel corner yet, but other than that, I think the D-backs will be solid once Waynes really feels his position and gets his confidence back after his injury. So that's how I look at it, and I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm thinking they're going to be in the mix the whole year, and those division games are going to be huge for them, as always.
It's definitely going to come down to like one or two games that, there's going to be one game that comes down to a last-second field goal, and that's going to kind of be what you point to. But we're going to be a team, on the bubble again. I bet a gnome during the Reddit AMA that we just did over on the subreddit. You can still go look at it if you want to read all that stuff with Vikings territory. I gave Austin Vikings territory.
I thought that I can't remember if that was you or Justin that did that.
Yeah, that was me. We bet a gnome, and I gave him an over-under of 9.5, and he took the over. So now I have the under, and we have a gnome on it. So, but I would say if I had an over-under of 9.5 wins, I think we'll be somewhere around there. And then it just depends on, do we fall apart in Soldier Field for another year, or do we not?
Good point.
The London game, even though it's the Browns and we like to, crap on them, London games are always weird, and there's always, some weird juju that goes on, and that's the kind of, if the Browns were going to beat us, it would be in the London game, and they have an offensive line that's pretty good. They have their quarterback looks promising, and it's going to be weird games like that. And if we can steal one against the Packers, if we can avoid getting swept by the Lions, although I don't think the Lions are going to be as good this year as they were last year.
Yeah.
It's going to kind of come down to how many of those, like 4 or 5 kind of toss-ups we can win. I think the offensive line, it just has to be better. You just can't be that bad again. It would just take every single move they made over the offseason would have to fail. And I just don't find that to be very likely. And outside of Reef, they have played together a little bit with Easton. Since Boone missed so much time, Easton did kind of get a low-key good amount of reps next to Elfline, and Elfline with Berger, and Berger with Remmers. And it's just Riley Reef who's kind of the odd man out because he only got like 2 series. But, with Dalvin Cook, that should be able to put us in easier situations. Hopefully you see fewer 3rd and 12s and fewer, 3rd and 8s that you can then throw short of the sticks on. That would be my hope. The Vikings were very good on like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. they were very, very good at converting those compared to the rest of the league. So hopefully you can get in more of those situations if you can get successful runs from Dalvin Cook, stay ahead of the chains, and let the defense do what they've always been able to do.
They get kind of a tough schedule with the AFC or the NFC South. I think there's 4 good teams down there. There's no slouches down there anymore. Used to, it wasn't too long ago that it was the Panthers won the division with a losing record, or maybe it was a 500 record. But that's it. Those are 4 tough games for them this year.
I think you got it. One of those teams is the slouch, and we just don't know which one it is yet.
Yeah.
You got to have one bad team in the division. One of them, there's a lot of variables in there. Somebody's going to have something not bounce their way, and you're going to have a Matt Ryan get hurt for a week or something like that, and one of those teams will fall apart. Although I will also say, if you go to sharpfootballstats.com, because that's a site that everybody should go to look at things and look at all their strength of schedule stuff, the Vikings have a pretty easy schedule overall. There's a tough patch of road games, but those games have to be played eventually. But otherwise, you got the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens are all not that great. 2 against the Bears, and the Lions are an iffy team. The Saints are certainly flawed and beatable. And compared to the rest of the league, they have one of the easier schedules. So I don't think you can use that as an excuse.
Really,
this is a game that is. If this is a team that is worthy of the playoffs, they'll win those games and they'll beat those lesser teams and they'll make the playoffs. I think that we really do hold the cards in our own hand.
I know when the schedule was announced, it was like the Packers have the easiest strength of schedule in the league, and the Vikings aren't far off of that, obviously, because of how the divisions work.
But the whole NFC North, because of the AFC North, and the AFC North is bad.
But, a lot of that's contingent on strength of schedule from last year, and things change. Obviously, look how good the Panthers were in 2015, then they were terrible last year, and are they going to bounce back this year, and then we got to play them. You don't really know, I guess, but
I do.
Joe does.
Yeah.
He's all-seeing, all-knowing. I guess my fear is that, especially after hearing you guys talk, is with the offensive line not playing together that much, that we might get a lot of holding penalties or just penalties in general, and then the offense gets into second and a lot of stuff I saw in the preseason that was second and 25, and they're not, obviously no team's built to overcome that, but like Luke mentioned, they're particularly more suited towards short yardage. And it raised a question in my head for Luke, which was, I know that you really don't like, and I'm not saying it's just you. I actually agree more and more with you the more that I see it, with the way that Shermer calls the offense. And so my question is, what do you think does the defense have to not necessarily overcome the play of the offense for this team to win, but how does that work as a whole? What type of team are you guys envisioning is going to be put on the field Monday night in this season? Is it going to be a team that wins with defense, and then just with not pedestrian, but average to above average offensive play? Or do you think that they have enough quality on offense and maybe in solidifying the offensive line a little bit that Bradford can maybe show what he did in the first 5 weeks last year, where he makes some of those throws against the Packers, where he became probably a Ring of Honor
I think it's a team where you see, sacks and turnovers, and that's the story of the game. You come out stuff like the Panthers game last year, where you come out and say, "Oh my God, they sacked Cam Newton many times." Those are going to be what the wins look like.
Okay.
And the losses are going to be 10-14, and we're going to be it's going to be the same thing where when we lose a game, we're going to be lamenting that we couldn't beat a team that scored 14. I think the defense is going to hold up. They've been able to hold up against, one of the best offenses in history for, year over year now since Zimmer got here in the Packers. And the Packers haven't produced it, other than a couple of games that got totally hilariously out of hand. Compared to the rest of the league, the Vikings have been able to handle that. They'll be able to handle Breeze. I think they'll even be able to, hold their own against Ben Roethlisberger and that prolific offense and, Matt Ryan and all that. I think they'll be able to hold their own and make those games winnable. But with a matchup like the one we're seeing on Monday night, you have a very good defense against a very good offense. The way I always see it, those games come down to the other side of the ball. And I think the mediocre offense against the bad, the below average offense against the below average defense, I think whichever one of those betters the other is where the game's going to come down to. And I think the two good parties are going to they'll cancel each other out. I would say the Saints will get somewhere in the 20s, and the Vikings are going to have to keep up.
I heard that the Saints are going to have Peter. I heard the Saints are going to have Peterson on defense just because he wants to stick it to the Vikings.
That would take out Dalvin Cook, just below the knees.
I got that's a pretty good assessment, Luke. I really feel like the defense is going to play well this year. They had a good season last year, but they didn't finish well, and I think they've got pride and they'll be back, and they're a little stronger, and Danielle Hunter is going to be a beast for most of the year. And
oh my God, he's going to crush things.
Yeah, this is like his national coming out party. It feels like.
Absolutely.
He should have already come out. He got 12.5 sacks last year, and he looks better.
Most on the team as a backup, technically speaking. So I don't know. Breeze has, as I wrote a preview for the game that's going to be posted after we're done chatting here. Breeze has done all right against the Vikings, over time, and
especially when the Saints cheat.
Works in his favor. 3 touchdowns in that game. That's right. But
Andy was opening wounds today on Twitter.
But and they're
tweeting about that.
Okay.
They're gonna be as Zimmer said, they've got a bunch of new faces on defense. They still got to come together. They haven't proven anything yet, but I think they'll be better than they've shown in the past. But I think the Vikings offense is going to be better. Like I said, the offensive line is got to take a step forward. It can't be like it was last year. And Dalvin Cook is behind his own blocking scheme is going to be exciting to watch. And the receivers have all got more confidence. You got Bradford's security blanket in Kyle Rudolph, and I think they'll do better. So I'm looking at a Vikings 23-20 win with Adrian Peterson getting 10 carries for 27 yards and no touchdowns. So.
Ooh.
That's a good one. And that gets into our predictions, which everyone loves. And by everyone, I mean me, because I have a selective memory and seem to think that I'm very good at this. I can go next on the prediction for the game. It's going to be somewhere around there, I think, for sure. It's going to be probably a close game. I don't think that... I want to think that this is going to be the worst, or I'm hoping this will be the worst we'll see our offensive line all season, just because they're still gelling and getting together. But they're by no means a cohesive unit, as has been discussed on this show, so it might be a little rough, especially early. But there's just too much talent on this team. I think that the 2 worst things last year were obviously the offensive line and then the running game because of the offensive line. And those things should be better, and even if the offensive line is terrible, starting out, they can dump the ball off to the running backs, something that they did with Jet last year, but is a much bigger facet of their game now. So, another year of Bradford actually getting a preseason. 2017 Vikings. It probably comes down to a big defensive stand, or maybe a Kai Forbath field goal. Who knows?
Oh, give me that.
Yeah. I like him, man. I mean, he seems to... I've always thought that this is an offense that doesn't necessarily need maybe I should knock on wood, but the 55-yarders all the time. If we can just get someone that can hit from 45 and under on a regular basis, which Blair Walsh was good at the long field goals but not the shorter ones, that we can win those games that you guys were talking about, that we look back and lose by 3 points or miss field goal or whatever. But he'll be an important part of the game. I think the Vikings will win. They need to win for my mental sanity, like Luke, you said, man. I hear I interact with our readers a lot. I think is where I get a lot of this, because I do want to have that connection with the readers, just because I'm extremely kind of amazed. Even though you guys do amazing work, it's just really strange to me that we have so many people following the site and how big it's gotten. It's just kind of cool. But yeah, people aren't very excited. It doesn't seem like that's on the high end. They're worried on the low end. But I think this team is good, and they'll show that on Monday night. Well coached, hopefully.
Yeah, I really don't want to go into I don't want to have 0-2 on the table when we have to go to Pittsburgh. That will be a bad thing to think about.
Yes, it would.
Who do we play? I'm like a NFL player, I'm always looking at the next week.
You mean it would be 0-1. They play Pittsburgh the second week.
Is that, I was going to say,
Right,
who do
to
we
have
play
0-2
week
like
2?
on the table.
Oh,
I don't want to be talking about the
I
Pittsburgh
got you.
game saying if we lose to Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh is such a good team. Like, if we can't beat Pittsburgh on the road, we go 0-2. I don't want to be in that spot at all.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 0-2. As soon as they do that, then everybody starts throwing out those how many 0-2 teams have not made it to the Super Bowl. None or
Right.
one or whatever.
Because every year there's 8 bad 0-2 teams, so you can get really easy stat. Did you put out a score, Joe?
I did 20-20.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe did 2017.
2017.
Right.
Okay. Can I do something that isn't a score?
Yes.
I'm going to put something else, my life on the line with something else.
It's got to be
I
juicy.
think, kind of like we were talking about with like the short yardage, like third and long problem. I don't think we've really done anything, and I don't think we've seen anything to indicate that this team's going to get any better on third and long situations. I think they're still going to struggle with that. They're still going to throw short of the sticks. Everything we've seen kind of indicates that, which is disappointing. But I do think with the work that they've done, they've set up a situation where they can be in fewer of those situations. So your bad third and long stuff will be relevant less, and that is just as good of a way to mitigate that problem. And I think for that reason, we'll be able to move the ball a little better than you saw all throughout last year. And does
that extend to the red zone too? Because that was a problem last year that seemed to carry through to this preseason. But we did get a lot of penalties in the red zone this preseason. It felt like so. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't really indicate much. I mean, that's somebody didn't know the snap count because it was the preseason. Like whatever, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think the problem you're going to see in the red zone. Yeah, I hope they figure it out. If you start getting false starts and illegal formations in the red zone, that's just inexcusable in the regular season.
What does he mean when he says hot, hot, hot?
Yeah.
That's the big question for the year. We're going to get to the bottom of that by week 16 on this show.
No, I don't think it would be healthy to expect this sudden red zone resurgence or whatever. Hopefully, Latavius Murray can knock some heads over when you're in that infrared zone. But, I mean, you got Treadwell. We don't really trust him very much. We thought it was going to be Bucky Hodges, but he's not the guy. Maybe this other tight end is a better red zone weapon. I don't know really much about him. But I don't think there's really much to indicate that will be better. But I will say, I do think the Vikings can win this one. I think they're a better team. And I don't think the Saints, the moves the Saints made on defense is either add rookies or add mediocre to below average veterans. And I don't think their defense is going to be very good again. They're missing Willie Snead, which is a huge deal. Trey Waynes can be helpful on Ted Ginn because Ted Ginn is exactly the kind of receiver that Trey Waynes can hold his own against. And Drew Brees isn't the kind of quarterback because he can only run 9 routes. And Trey Waynes is actually really good at defending those deep routes.
Okay.
He gets beat on the slants and the ins and stuff. Michael Thomas is a good receiver, but he's no Mike Evans, and I think Xavier Rhodes will be able to handle him. So I think if you don't let the Saints dictate the matchups, which is a game plan decision that Zimmer can make, I think you can hold this offense to a decent. Like you can hold this very good Saints offense in check a little bit. So I think the Vikings can pull it out. And here's my here's my prediction. I think all-purpose yards, Dalvin Cook doubles up Adrian Peterson.
Oh.
There you go.
That made me think of another good prediction. The game ends with AP fumbling away the victory for the Saints.
Oh.
How great would that be?
We don't get that kind of thing.
Vikings. I know. It's too much. I've asked the football gods for too much for the Vikings.
Yeah, they're not.
That happens to them, but yeah, not for them.
Hey, Joe, since you consider yourself pretty good at the score predictions, maybe we need to have a point differential all-season contest for a gnome, huh?
I'll keep track of that, and I'll throw in my dumb predictions, because I hate doing scores.
Yeah, let's do it. Because after the Purple PTSD / Vikings territory fantasy football draft on Saturday, I'm fairly certain I'm not bringing a gnome home this season. So I got to make one up somehow against Joe. Basically, before the draft last year, I said at the beginning of the chat, I said anyone but Laquan Treadwell. And during the fantasy football draft on Saturday, I said anyone but Joe Oberle wins this league. I can't have Joe winning again, especially the first 2 back-to-back.
Well, that gnome I have is lonely, so You know,
I have a feeling they're just the way things work. You're gonna have a whole mantle full of gnomes. Your wife will leave you because you won't take them down.
I don't have that good a team. I'm not that more confident in the Vikings than I am in my fantasy football team. So
yeah, it seems like the guys that all auto draft have the best team. So what does that show you about?
It shows me I need a strategy.
Yeah, I did all right. No, I didn't. Anyway, so yeah, we pretty much covered everything that was on the list. Was there anything that's glaring that you guys wanted to talk about, or I think
Dalvin Cook, going off Luke's hot take, will I don't know what the arithmetic equation would be, but he would quadruple the number of passes that AP catches.
I think it would be infinite because AP won't catch a pass.
I was going to say
that's the
dividing
one
by 0 here, Joe.
Yeah, how do you multiply it by 0? Who knows? Maybe that's their sneaky game plan. They're just going to air it out to AP the whole game.
If anybody can make Adrian catch some passes, it would be Drew Brees.
Throw it right through him. Should be a good game, though. I'm excited. I don't know if it's, and I've said this before, but this was it seemed like a really long off season. It just, especially the last month. Maybe it's just anticipation. I looked at some of the money that I had spent on PayPal, and I couldn't figure out where all this money was going, and then I realized that the beginning of August I was in training camp, and that seems like months ago. So I think fans are relieved. Well, they're not relieved, but they're excited for the first season, and we'll see how the turnout is Monday night. I'm super psyched about that. So yeah, there's still room for people to show up if they want to. It's no longer only 21 plus. So by no means don't bring children, because it's a Vikings game, and we want to be able to let the expletives fly, but it'll be a good time. Yeah. So anything else, fellas? We have just a couple minutes left. That's why usually we're over. So
is it me, or have the Vikings been on the opening Monday night game
every year forever?
3 out of the last 4 years. I mean, Zimmer in his first game as a Viking went out there and stunk it up in San Francisco, and there was another one.
No, his first game was against the Rams, the Cordell Patterson game.
That was his second game.
His first game in 2014.
His first game the first game in 2015 was San Francisco.
Yeah. Right.
And it's I think 3 out of the last 4. They keep sending they used to send them out to the coast for the Vikings. You know, is it because Minnesota's in the central time zone and it works out and they're a halfway decent team and they don't want to put the Packers there because they want to save the Packers for later? Or what is the reason why the Vikings always have an opening night Monday game? I have to go back and look. I swear it's 3 out of the last 4 years.
I bet it has something
to do with the time
zone. And I always hear that the Vikings have this massive nationwide following, that they're like a top 5 nationwide team or a top 10. No, the Packers are. Yeah, I mean the Packers are. Well, are they? I don't know. I mean, you'd think so, but yuck.
I got to go look. I'm not when they went to these 2-game Monday night openers. The Vikings have always been, have frequently been one of them. I just think it's bizarre, but that's all right.
I think some of it has to do real quick too with the fact that there's this new generation of young Vikings fans that are still like JR or most of the writers that we work with aren't in Minnesota, and the common denominator as to why that they write for the Vikings even though they didn't grow, like Luke grew up in Minnesota. But a lot of the guys that I've talked to are from like North Carolina or wherever, and it's because they fell in love with Randy Moss and Culpepper.
You're saying they can stay up later than me? Is that it?
That's a big part of it too.
Yeah. The Vikings do have a sneaky national following.
Yeah, you've seen a lot out there, haven't you, Luke?
Luke goes to Vikings bars out there.
Yeah. There is a Vikings bar out in L.A. Pineapple Hill, baby.
Is there a decent amount of people?
Depends on how good they are. Near I think the Eagles game last year was the most crowded I've ever seen it. It was, that place was bursting at the seams, and then as the the season went on, it kind of dwindled as the team kind of fell apart.
Like in a town like that hasn't had the NFL for a number of years, are there a lot of those kind of bars where
yeah, there's one for every team for sure. Because there's, everybody wants to keep their hometown team because nobody's from here.
Right.
I think with Zimmer and his opening games, he's had 2 Monday nighters, and then he had the Rams game was not. I don't think it was a Monday nighter in 2014, and then 2016 the Titans game was a midday game. But it's been on the road every year of Zimmer. This is the first Zimmer's season opener at home.
I have a theory that we play the Giants every year for some reason, even though I know we don't. But it always seems like we're playing the Giants in December.
We're always just about as good as the Giants.
Yeah, it's really strange. Which is great because we, especially
they have been on the schedule a lot. Yep, the Giants have been on the schedule,
which is
often.
They know Eli Manning pretty well, obviously.
Perhaps they finished the same spot in their division. So when the Vikings aren't playing the NFC East, that's their other team they end up playing. But they play them a lot. It's really bizarre.
Seems like it.
And they play them well.
No complaints there. So yeah, we can wrap up the shoe. Again, I want to invite people out. Go to the website. You'll find, if you're not a Minneapolis person, you'll find where the party is. It's next to Pepito's, which is right off of Chicago Avenue and the Parkway, Minnehaha Parkway. So it's not like Chicago Lake Liquors area, even though I would have loved to have it down there too. It's closer to the Parkway. And keep following us on social media, especially as we work more and more with our sister site over at Vikings Territory. There's going to be some fun stuff going on there. Lots of articles getting swapped back and forth and all sorts of stuff. We are Purple PTSD on both of those, so no.com. With that, let's get ready for Monday night, and hopefully we'll be happy, gregarious bunch next Wednesday when we're a day and a half out from a massive, massive win. But thanks for listening. This has been the Purple Journal Podcast.